Where do the funds come from, and are they sufficient? Public assistance abuse treatment programs have traditionally relied on three funding streams: federal substance abuse block grants, Medicaid reimbursement, and state general funds. There are also SAMHSA grants for private or public rehabilitation programs, so the money is readily available as the funds are non competitive, federally subsidized grants that only need be applied for. State run rehabilitation for prisoners also rely on federal block grants, Medicaid reimbursement, and state general funds, just like the public programs. Number 6, what are adverse consequences? Does the current problem or issue pose what adverse consequences does the current problem or issue pose for specific persons, communities, and society? Do the adverse consequences suggest urgent action is required? There are too many people in jail for drug offenses. As directed by the stakeholders, this proposal is targeting a county jail system due to the potentially politically and socially charged disagreement with the solution due to the stigma surrounding drug addiction in general. We were unable to obtain data from Acosta County, but the state of Michigan currently is incarcerating 64,000 people, or 599 for every 100,000 residents, with 250,000 total people total behind bars in criminal justice supervision like probation and parole. The national average is 664. The state of Michigan has a higher incarceration rate than the following 11 countries on the list. I could not find an agreed upon number for people behind bars for drug offenses in the state of Michigan, but I did obtain the national data. There are approximately 1.9 million people incarcerated in the U.S. 374,000 of those are incarcerated for drug offenses, or 1 in 5. We can extrapolate of the 253,000 people incarcerated or in the criminal justice system in Michigan, 20%, or 50,600, could be in the system for drug offenses. Since our state has a high incarceration rate, very much closer to the national average than other states, it is a reasonable assumption that these numbers are accurate. That comes out to 20% of the people involved in the criminal justice system in Michigan are there due to drug offenses. That is alarming considering that our data shows that 7 to 17% of those 50,600 people actually get help that keeps them out of the system. That means only 3,542, 7%, to 8,602, 17%, out of those 50,600 people with drug offenses are getting help with their addiction. The data shows us that minorities are disproportionately incarcerated for drug offenses. The ACLU says that in Detroit, Michigan, a black man is 3.3 times more likely to be arrested for possession of marijuana than whites. And this alone is enough to justify our proposal. But add that people that go through the rehab have such a high success rate, and that a drug charge follows you forever. The concept of replacing minor drug offenses for rehab is imperative. This not only stops the targeting of minorities, but gives the people that need help the tools they need to succeed without having a drug offense, making their lives profoundly more difficult. From a social work point of view, the current model, which seeks to defend the general public from drug offenders, goes against every social work ethic and principle that we abide by. Service requires helping of people in need. Drug offenders are in need of help, and the system sets them up for failure, as we will describe below. Social justice requires the challenging of current norms. With the reactive nature of rehabilitation while incarcerated and drug court, and the disproportionate number of minorities incarcerated for drug offenses, the normal view of drug offenders as deviant criminals is not challenging the norm. The dignity and worth of a person requires the respect of the person and their dignity. Treating drug offenders like hardened criminals instead of human beings that may have just made a mistake is not respecting their dignity and worth at all. The importance of human relationships requires the analysis and recognition that human relationships are very important. The current system condemns drug offenders to jail for some period of time with a reduction in sentences for compliance. That destroys a person's relationships and then leaves that person with a record and relationships to mend when they get out, if they get the chance to. Because of that record, people from the offender's former life may keep their distance due to the stigma associated with drug offenders. Integrity requires behavior executed in a trustworthy manner. With the exception of one study on drug court efficacy described by Dr. Sotheby that found the drastic exaggeration of program outcomes to acquire further funding and program length, I do not believe that most people set out to be deceitful. But as I mentioned, there are instances where the data has been skewed to keep prison rehabilitation programs seemingly successful. While integrity is less of a concern, competence is a huge concern. The experts that run these programs, quote experts, quote unquote experts, that run these programs see the numbers and see that the war on drugs has not worked and that record numbers of citizens are being incarcerated for drug offenses. They still grasp onto this outdated notion that drug offenders are the enemy instead of in need of our compassionate and empathetic help.